All right, joining us today on Pirate Radio Live, color analyst for the Pirates on road football games, All American, and you know him from his great playing days here at ECU. Andrew Bays joins us. Andrew, how you doing, man?
Good, Clip. It's good to see you, man. Hope
You
all's
too.
well.
Yeah, we just had a depressing Commanders chat before we went on, so let's talk about a team with a winning record, and that would be the East Carolina Pirates, as ECU sits 4-3. Second and final bye week here of the season, so it is a stretch of Saturday games coming up in November. And let's start there, Andrew. How about the wacky October schedule, the 3 Thursday games in a row? Are you glad to get back to Saturday games coming up for the final stretch?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I just think about players and coaches, and it's funny listening, or been listening over the last few weeks at Coach Talk, trying to say, we're flipping our schedule, so the Thursday is the Saturday and the Monday is the Sunday, and like trying to, manage all that. And I know it's exhausting for those guys, to be out of rhythm. But it worked out that they had 3 Thursdays in a row, so they didn't have to flex the schedule that much, kind of get into a rhythm with that. But yeah, I know Blake and his staff are happy to get back into a Saturday game schedule and more of a natural feel to it. I mean, it throws everything off, especially as a student athlete. As far as if you're concerned with time away from class, which some of these guys truly are, it's an odd thing, to be disrupted in the middle of a school week for sure.
Well, Andrew, maybe it helps Jim Zoki out, your broadcast partner, that he's able to handle his Sunday duties a little better. And I've talked to you guys during and after games, just via text, how much I've enjoyed the broadcast this year and also with Jim and Kevin. But speaking of Kevin, when a corner, makes a good play or falls down, screws up, I like asking Kevin about it, getting his thoughts. We were laughing because during the Tulane game, we had those punting issues, and I told Kevin Andrews going to lose his mind on the air if this stuff continues. But how about that brief moment in time? It seemed like it was a major issue for one game, hasn't been crazy other than that. But Andrew, you the former great punter, I'm sure you look at things with a critical eye. How were you handling yourself in that moment?
Yeah, no, Ryan Levy, he started it off in that Tulane game, and that's not a place you want to be, as far as you're an extension as a punter of the defensive unit. And a lot of times you're training with those guys, you're in the locker room with those guys, you probably lean more towards, those guys as far as team members. And that is a awful feeling, one personally to experience that. Um, and have to come to the sidelines and address your teammates that way. And unfortunately for Ryan, he got yanked, and it was good to see him bounce back from that. He had a good effort against Tulsa this
Yeah.
weekend, but yeah, you want to be the one that's flipping the field, helping your defense out. Giving the offense a long field to have to worry about. The punters in the Tulane game, the ECU punters really kind of hampered a lot of that field position game. And the defense, I think, responded really well despite some of that. But no, those guys got to be better, and they know it.
Andrew, I love your overall knowledge of football, and a lot of times maybe I'm stereotyping, but I feel like guys, specialists I've talked to, even Alex Harper, long snapper for the Pirates, who still does stuff with us here at Pirate Radio. We love his insight, but he lacks some of the knowledge when it comes to offense and defense, and a lot of times the specialists kind of off to the side doing their own thing. I'm curious, when you were perfecting your craft at ECU, did you know offensive X's and O's? Is that something you've got into more, post career? Because you do a great job detailing what's going on offense and defense.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for that clip. No, my years, I could throw. I was a different kind of athlete, I guess. I grew up not necessarily playing football, even though my dad wanted me to. I was a pitcher in baseball and basketball player and a soccer player. And so I never really learned the X's and O's, but I was a football fan. And, my brothers would go with me to football games, and I'd go with my dad, and I love the game of football. So when I had an opportunity to play it, I embraced it. So much so that when I came to East Carolina, Coach Logan believed in my arm talent, and he actually tried to put me under center. As far as trying some things in summer ball and 3 days, and I got under center a couple times, and I think I smashed my hand in one of the little snap machines that they had, and he said, "All right, that's enough of that," and didn't go very far with it. But we were able to execute on a lot of fun fake punts and field goals during my career. So we had to get dialed into X's and O's as part of it. But I test a lot of it just for my love of the game. I embrace watching film. I embrace seeing what a good defense or a good offense can do. For the Pirates, I embrace looking at what they can improve on, and listening to what the coaches say during the week. It's fun to see the little things that they might tip at their press conferences, and kind of jump back into the film and see if something pops up. And so, no, I appreciate that clip. I love the game, and hopefully that shows.
Yeah, awesome. That's cool. Andrew Bay's joining us. Andrew mentioned fake punts. We've seen a successful fake punt, fake field goal, and then the little pooch kickoff was awesome against Tulane, and really after that kind of felt like, hey man, this might be our night. But how about the job the special teams has done this year to give the team extra possessions and yards and momentum in these football games?
Yeah, no question. That's something that the world I lived in and playing, professional football and college football, we always had fake field goals or fake punts in the game plan. My head coach, Coach Logan, always believed in that was a way, especially when you're playing a tough team, that you could steal a possession. And, I never saw that with Mike Houston as a philosophy during his years. You'd go out to practice and you'd rarely see them practice, special teams fakes or, anything that they might have in a game plan. But it is completely different with Blake. I think he understands and embraces the idea that in these tight games, you got to steal a possession one way or the other. And you've got to have those fakes up your sleeve, and so they drill it home, and they've been successful with it. Sneaking on a punt returner as the holder against the Army game, which
Yeah.
it was amazing that nobody picked up on. And even that pooch kickoff, that surprise onside. It's funny in some of these production meetings. I could see that week that Blake was studying, just on his big screen. I could see I could see the return game up on his monitor, which made me think that he was studying something. And
Yeah.
I didn't know what kind of fake he was going to have, but sure enough, in that Tulane game, he executed on that surprise onside kickoff. So they saw Tulane, kickoff returners leaving early and voiding a spot in the field, and they exploited it. So I'm loving that this coaching staff is digging into the games that much, film study wise, to try to figure out a way to steal a possession.
Very cool, very detailed. Andrew Bay's joining us here today on Pirate Radio Live. Andrew, a pretty status quo year for ECU, and by that I mean the Pirates are 4-0 in games they were favored to win. They are 0-3 in games they are have been underdogs. So, kind of, what's your overall take for this 4-3 East Carolina team with still a lot to go and man, a ton to play for with a 2-1 conference record at this point, a lot to play for in the season. So how are you feeling overall about this team?
Yeah, no, you can't like look back, on a schedule and be like, what if? But
By the
there's
way,
so
as
many.
a Redskins fan, Andrew, I've done that my entire life. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
I mean, I'm right there with you. And looking back, that BYU game, what if, they didn't fall apart, there right before halftime and make a couple key mistakes? What would that game have looked like? Tulane, they get off to a better start. What could that game have looked like? NC State, they get off to a better start. What could that game have looked like? So I think that still the sky's the limit for this Pirate team. I think that they're showing signs that they can produce at a pretty high level. They just haven't been able to consistently put it together over 4 quarters in a game. The Tulsa game was pretty. They did a pretty good job from start to finish offensively in that one. Defensively, they gave up some chunk plays. They let that tight end, exploit the secondary pretty well. They're going to have to dial that up because Temple's got another good tight end that they're going to have to worry about. But I think as a season, I'm pretty optimistic on it. I think they've left a lot on the table, and I think there's a lot yet for them to achieve. I think the offense is coming around with the rushing game. They showed bits of that this past week. I mean, heck, they're over 160 yards rushing for the season, 160 yards a game on the season, which I think a lot of Pirate fans think that the Pirates have a hard time getting their rushing game going. But Coach Baker just as well as anybody. He'll attest that this offense has to run through the rushing game. We go back even last year with Rajay. Rajay we'd see him not get much of a gain going in the first half, and then all of a sudden the floodgates would open in the second half. They haven't had much of that. They're starting to hit on some of those explosive plays. But no, I'm bullish on the rest of the season. I think I'm standing pretty optimistic on what's to come.
Andrew, I thought the Tulsa game, the way it looked, was going to be the look of the majority or the entirety even of 2025 ECU football, and by that I mean big plays by our offense, big plays by the opposing team, and kind of a back and forth. The ECU defense surpassed any of my expectations throughout the first half of the season, and Tulsa was able to get some yards and some points last Thursday, but that the defense has been great when you're watching them play week in and week out. It's not a surprise anymore this late in the season. It's a big enough sample size to say, all right, this defense is pretty darn good. But how long did it take you to get through the season to kind of finally say, all right, this defense is better than anybody thought it would be?
Yeah, no, I was concerned. I was definitely concerned in the spring, and I was concerned in the summer. I know Coach Aldridge in the spring was concerned about the secondary depth. They went out, got some transfers in the summer, and then the scrimmages I saw in the summer, it was just so hard to. I know the offensive line was kind of sorting through their depth in those scrimmages, and the defense didn't look great. They were giving up gashing plays, so I had a lot of concern on the defense, especially the front seven. We lost a lot. Big Tay was a cog last year. That defensive front, Chad Stevens, all of them, a lot of playing experience, and we were switching gears. And JD Lampley obviously was a big part of that coming back, but looking collectively at it, I was concerned about that front seven, and they really showed me something at that NC State game as how they played, how Coach Aldridge was able to rotate through with that front seven, and it's incredible to me. I mean, Coach Aldridge in his steps at Auburn and Liberty, he's been known to play in the backfield. That's kind of his trademark: is tackles for losses, sacks, blitz packages, that kind of stuff. And you see it. I mean, you saw it in the Tulsa game. I think we had 10 tackles for losses and 5 sacks in that one. So they're buzzing. He's in what I saw in the spring and summer and what he's gotten out of this unit collectively, especially with some of the injuries that they've had, is just super impressive from the coaching standpoint. And then, these players buying into what Coach Aldridge is instilling in these players, and you see it, week in and week out. I think red zone defense, they're top 10 in the country. You know what I mean? I mean, they're stalling out offenses. I know you talk to Coach Aldridge, he'll want to see some of these chunky plays go away.
Yeah.
And they'll coach that up, but no, this defensive unit has been outstanding. I know Sam Danka has been a work in progress as far as him making the transition to inside linebacker. Coverage is a thing they've been working on with him, but even still, he produced Tulsa game with 7 tackles he had. He's an outstanding athlete, and he's dangerous, and all these guys are improving week over week.
A couple more for you, Andrew, and we'll let you run. Who would Coach Andrew Bays, start at running back against Temple next Saturday? Who's your favorite out of the group?
I mean, I love them all, and I love what they all bring. You know, the way London ran against Tulsa, I think he definitely gets first crack at it. They love Engelman, and that's one of the guys that he's come up in production meetings as somebody that the tape what he does at practice it can't be denied. He's been productive all the way back to the spring. He's won over the coaches to earn reps and to be able to get out there and play. And every aspect of what they believed he would be, he's producing in the game. So, they love his energy. They love his ability to fall forward, and pick up extra yards upon tackling. And he has the ability to hit the home run ball. And I think we saw that with London. Obviously, London had a huge game against Tulsa, which is great. We've been looking for those explosive plays, but Marlon Gunn's the other guy. I mean, gets down in the red zone. Who better to give the rock to than Marlon Gunn? First and goal from the 6. He can give you some fresh legs and a little bit of beef behind it. So I love them all, man.
Andrew, anybody come to mind, offense, defense, you want to see step up here the last 5 games that maybe we've seen them make plays, or maybe we want to see more from them. Who's your offensive and defensive guy you want to see kind of rise to the top here these last 5 games?
Yeah, I mean, I've expressed it on the radio during some of the calls. I think Anthony Smith.
Yeah.
Watching it from the press box level of the game, I haven't seen defensive backs that can cover him. He is running wide open from our view in the press box on a lot of. It's just early in the season, the offensive line with their struggles. Caton just hasn't had the time to get the ball downfield, but so we've seen enough of Anthony Smith for sure. I'd love to see a little bit more of Yannick Smith. He's an incredible, exceptional athlete that can equally get downfield to Anthony. And the other guy that's dangerous after the catch that had a couple plays get called back this last week is Brock Spalding. I think he's super dangerous in open field if they can get the ball just to him and let him make plays with his legs. He's a huge threat that I'd love to see more of. And then defensively, I go to more of Sam Danka. I want to see him continue to improve, coverage wise, be able to. He's an explosive player. He's got a lot of length and a ton of potential. And I think each week he continues to get a little bit better. And I think sky's the limit for him.
Andrew Bays joining us. Love talking ECU football with you, Andrew.
Yeah,
great stuff, and love, as I said, listening to you and Jim as well. And have a great call in Philly. What's a bye week for you look like? A weekend off, hanging with family, watching football. What you up to?
We got state volleyball high school playoffs going on right now.
There we go.
My daughter plays at Rose High School, and they beat Jacksonville in the second round of the state playoffs last night. And they have East Chapel Hill tomorrow, and then if they win that, they'll play on Saturday. So we'll be doing a lot of high school volleyball, hopefully.
Well, good luck. Yeah, that's great. Good stuff.
Are you going to Temple?
I will be locked in the studio for pregame and postgame. We'll have Jared Watkins from Pirate Radio up there in Philly, and hopefully bringing us back home a win.
That's right, and a cheesesteak.
Yes, sir. I'll take one of those too. Andrew, appreciate you, man. Let's do it again down the road.
All right, Clip. I appreciate it, buddy.